Behind the Brand features the people who are making things happen. Get the insight to grow your biz from experts who've done it. Get behind the brand.
Hi, I'm Brian Elliott. Welcome to another edition of Behind the Brand. Today I'm here with SVP at Ogilvy and author of the book Likeonomics, Rohit Bhargava. Rohit, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So what do you do if you're the giver? And because nowadays, with people pushing out messages on social media left and right, a lot of people will agree that marketers are ruining it because it's just like traditional, they're just pushing out crap.
Yeah.
It's all about me. But what if you are the opposite? What if you are trying to help people constantly, but all anyone ever does is just take from you? I understand your stance. I know what you're saying. I think what you're saying is to focus on being a resource, trying to think about how you can help other people. But what if that's all you're doing and you're not seeing a return on that?
Well, I think part of the challenge is that we can't do this 24/7. The best way to start with something like social media, if you're an expert in something, is to use social media to answer the top 10 questions that someone always asks you. One of Tim Ferriss's most popular videos, right? And he does tons of videos. He's done a ton of stuff. He has a huge audience. One of his most popular videos is titled "How to Peel a Boiled Egg."
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, that's it.
It's about 90 seconds.
Yeah, but that's it, right? But how many people do you think go onto Google and type in, "How do I peel a boiled egg"? Millions. And what comes up for them? His video. Do they know who Tim Ferriss is? Some of them do, some of them don't. But do they need to know how to peel a boiled egg? Yes, they do. Now, nobody's going to Tim and saying, "Hey, man, I just wanted to know, how do I peel a boiled egg?" Right? His book's not about that.
Right.
Nothing's about that.
Right.
But now they get introduced to him, and now he's added value, and therefore they're like, "Oh, look at this 4-hour work week thing. Look at this 4-hour chef thing. Look at this 4-hour body thing." And all of a sudden, maybe they become a book buyer.
Yeah, he becomes a go-to guy
Right.
indirectly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of example, to your point, you can't do that all the time. But you can think about what's the most useful, and that will come back to you in a way that you don't expect.
Well, I'm thinking about it in just terms of a relationship, because the best relationships are two-way, right? Like when I need you and you need me.
Yeah.
When it's one way, like you always need me, we're not that great of friends, right? I see you as a
Right.
mooch.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and I think that, we do have to get better at understanding who is mooching off of us all the time. And we have a natural trigger in our head. We may not say, "Oh, I don't keep track," right? We all like to think, "Oh, I don't keep track."
We totally keep track. There's
People
a list.
keep track.
Oh,
People
yeah.
keep track.
Yeah.
And so I think that, first of all, this is an important thing, actually, because I wrote about this idea of being nice versus being likable, and how they're actually two very different things.
Yeah, explain that.
So if I'm nice and you ask me for a favor, I'll do it. You ask me for another favor, I'll do it again. You ask me for another favor, I'll do it again. Right? If I'm nice, I won't really tell you the truth. One of the most likable guys, actually two really likable guys, I think, that I actually wrote about are Steve Jobs and Simon Cowell. And that'll probably confuse a lot of people because, likable, Simon Cowell, likable, Steve Jobs, how? But the power, I think, of what both of them do is they deliver unexpected honesty, and they always had. Steve Jobs did when he was alive. He would tell people when something sucked, sometimes in a very rude way, but he was very honest, and it was because he was trying to make the product better.
Right.
Simon Cowell, you listen to him when he was an American Idol judge, he would do the same thing. If somebody really sucked at singing,
Yeah, it was spot on.
it was spot on. He
Yeah,
was
it was
always
accurate.
right. He was always right.
Yeah.
Nobody disagreed. I didn't disagree with him ever. If he said somebody sucked, it's because they sucked.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think that is a way of getting people to associate something with you. And actually, people love that. Because I love that about Simon Cowell. And if you listen to the people who worked most closely with Steve Jobs, that's what they loved about him.
So likability is more about trust.
Likability is all about trust. And I think the first principle, and I sort of lay down 5 what I think are principles based on a lot of research that I did in the book. The first principle of trust is truth. And to deliver truth, you have to deliver unexpected honesty.
Right.
And it's not about transparency. We talk a lot about transparency, and this idea that transparency to me is someone told you have to tell something to somebody. Whereas unexpected honesty is Oprah standing up before she was Oprah, right, when she first got her show in November of 1986, standing up in front of a live studio audience during a taped episode about child abuse, admitting that she had been abused herself as a child. So in 1986, that's not something celebrities did. She built up this huge following of people because, not just because of that one moment, but because that's always what she did. She took her own life, turned it around, and said, here's why I chose what I chose. And I think that's this really different thing from just being completely, not showing that side of yourself. That we just don't care.
Yeah.
And if you think about so much marketing, like people just, they don't care.
Right. I want to revisit that because we may care, but there's so much noise. I want to talk about how to compete. But let's go back to the 5 principles. So you talk about trust being one of the first ones. What are some of the other pillars there?
So actually, truth is the first one. And
so
the
truth.
5 spell out the acronym TRUST. So it's very intentionally done that way. So truth, relevance, unselfishness, simplicity, and timing.
So
those are the 5.
So talk to us about the relevancy. What is that?
Yeah, so relevance is really about, a lot of people think that relevance is just getting somebody to care. And what I talked about in the book was that relevance is actually getting somebody to care right now, which is different.
Is it also about context? Like, making sure that it's the
Context is really important, yeah. Context, the surrounding context for something is very important. That we don't necessarily care unless there is that sort of umbrella around it. So super important. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And how about the next one?
So relevance, then unselfishness. And this is one that a lot of times we sort of touched on it, this idea of doing things for other people.
Right.
But I think that when it comes to likability, that unselfishness is such a critical part because it's what allows you to demonstrate that you're not the mooch. That you're not the guy who always wants somebody to do something else for them. That you're actually going to be proactively doing these things for other people, and it's a big deal.
So the gal that brings in bagels or donuts into the company every Friday, is she being nice or is she being likable?
I don't think it's easy to kind of say, okay, well, I'm going to do this thing every Friday at noon.
It's about intention,
and
right?
therefore I'll strategically be likable. I don't think it works like that. I think that in natural human interactions, there's a lot of micro moments when people see that or they don't see that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so you walk up to somebody's desk and you say, "Hey, I need a favor. I need help with this thing. I really need to talk." And somebody says, "Okay, let's talk." Or they say, "Come back at 2:15 and I'll be done." That's a micro moment, right? And those add up to our relationships to each other. None of those individually make that much of a difference.
Yeah.
The donut thing is one thing, but how does that kind of overarching interpersonal relationship work? It's not based on the donuts. It's based on everything.
It's true, and it's complicated because even the words that we say, the meanings are not in the words; they're in people.
Yeah.
Right. So
body language and how people.
Yeah, and it may be
relate to each
misinterpreted.
other, yeah.
Our intentions might be misinterpreted. Like
Right.
you write a book because, the words are in you and they have to come out on paper, and you want to make change and you want to make a difference, and you have all these thoughts and opinions. Other people might interpret that as, what an arrogant jerk. Can't believe he calls himself an author.
Yeah, and one of the most powerful moments that I had, actually relating to a client story, was when I was sitting in front of a client. I had 2 meetings in the same day. One meeting was with a pharmaceutical client. The other was with a consumer packaged good client, right? So morning, afternoon. The morning I went to the pharmaceutical client, and one of the big concerns for anybody in that industry is, what if someone says something negative about one of my products?
Right.
Now I've got to do all these different things. I've got to involve the lawyers.
Damage control.
So yeah, damage control. So we're not gonna listen to social media. We're not gonna do anything. That was the conclusion.
Just
right?
like complete denial.
Complete denial.
Shut it out,
because they just didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Then I go that afternoon to talk to a brand that sells orange juice. And there's a lot of negativity about orange juice because it's too sweet, it rots your teeth, it's not that healthy. A lot of moms are against orange juice. So, we're talking about the same issue. We're going to go in social media. What if all these moms go all negative on us about orange juice?
Yeah.
And the client listens to that and she goes, "You know what? Some people don't like orange juice." And I think that is the way to look at the world. Like, some people aren't going to be happy with it. Some people are going to think, what an arrogant jerk. He's writing about likability. Who makes him the authority?
So do you worry about those people? What you're saying is no.
Well, I think natural human behavior is, oh my God, somebody hates me. I want them to like me. But
yeah, Gary Vee will tell you, I'm going to hunt down every single person who said a negative thing about me. I'm going to reach out and give him a hug or buy him a beer or whatever he does.
yeah, I think
One at a time.
I can see him saying that, by the way. I can totally see that. I think my philosophy is maybe a little bit different. That if somebody wants to engage, right? If they say, oh, I don't believe that. That's total crap.
Orange juice, is going to...
But they want to talk to you about it. They want to be convinced, right? Then that's one thing, right? Because I'm happy to engage anybody who's like, oh, that theory is total crap. I don't believe it. Okay, well, here's the research that I did over here. Here's the 10 studies that prove this exact same thing. I'll be happy to send you links to it. This is what I used.
Here's the rationale.
But if someone's like, you're an arrogant jerk, and I just want to say you're an arrogant jerk, and I'm signing off now.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what am I supposed to do with that?
And by the way, I'm anonymous.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm anonymous, and you're a total jerk, and I just wanted to tell you that.
Lobbing grenades.
I'm like, well, thanks a lot. Like, why should I waste? I mean, I have a family, I have kids. I don't have time for that.
Yeah. We call them trolls, right?
Yeah. The people who go on to TechCrunch and their comment says, I'm first. Right? I mean, they don't add any value to anything, so why waste your time with that?
Yeah. Okay, good advice. So we're walking through the 5. So we've got truth, relevance, unselfishness. What's the next?
Simplicity.
Simplicity, okay.
Yep.
Walk us through what that is.
So simplicity is sort of where we started our conversation, this idea of simplifying things, and that being the silver bullet today. And I think if you look at 3 successful case studies, right? One is Apple and why Apple's products are so powerful. Yes, it's design, but I would argue it's simplicity at the heart of it. It's just easier to use.
Yeah.
The success of the flip cam, all about simplicity, because the video quality wasn't as high as other video cameras, but they now allowed you to take those videos and unlock them from limbo and actually send them to somebody.
Yeah, and the button's this big.
Yeah.
It's,
you just click it.
Can't
That's
miss it.
And the USB pops out and it's all attached and no cords, no nothing.
Yeah.
Total
Do
simplicity.
you think that'll come back, by the way? I mean, it's really sad to have seen that gone.
Yeah, I mean, I think that idea of the simplicity aesthetic is already going to a lot of different things. I mean, I just installed a Nest thermostat in my house.
Right.
Which is this thermostat designed by one of the guys who designed the iPods.
I've seen it. It's super cool.
Super cool,
Yeah.
yeah. And it totally transforms how you use something as logical and sort of never thinking about as a thermostat, right? So that is already happening. And I think, the other example of that is more of a communications example, and it's Twitter. And there's a reason why celebrities love Twitter, because it allows them to communicate with a large population of people in a way that they couldn't otherwise. They couldn't do it in person. They can't do it by phone. They can't do it by email. There's no way that I could write a quick note to Alyssa Milano saying, hey, congratulations on your kid. And she could read that and decide, even though she has no idea who I am, unfortunately, to decide to reply and say thank you to me.
Right.
No other way she could do that.
Yeah, you'd have to break through
And
the
that's
posse
because of
and
simplicity.
Publicist
Yeah.
and...
Yeah, I mean, there'd be gatekeepers. And so I think one of the big things that I tell entrepreneurs and also students is we live in a world now where the unreachable people are reachable. And that's a really powerful thing to remember. And that's something I remembered because, I pursued Guy Kawasaki to write the foreword for my first book. I got Deepak Chopra to write an endorsement on the cover for the second book.
Yeah,
These are unreachable people.
Yeah, I totally
Or they
agree.
would be.
Whether it's status or geography, you're absolutely right. I
Yeah.
mean, that's maybe something we take a lot for granted.
Yeah, and I think that you do have access to those people now, and that's really powerful.
So, what's the last
Timing.
component? Okay. Timing is everything, isn't it?
Timing is everything, yeah. And I think there's a reason why that's last, because it spells trust, but also because timing is like a great way to close out why this stuff matters. And I think that a lot of times when you do get to those situations where as a company or as a person you are not likable and you're trying to push something in front of somebody, and if you think about the heritage of interruption marketing and this idea that we're just going to put our ad in front of somebody whether they want to see it or not, just doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because of timing, not because of relevance, right? Because I might be in the market for a car and I might care about your ad, but I don't care about seeing it before, as a popover before I get to see my nephew's pictures of graduation that I'm
Right.
trying to go see.
Right.
That's not the moment when I want to see your ad. That's the moment when I want to see my graduation pictures. And if you're interrupting that, then even if that's the perfect ad for me and I'm your perfect demographic and I'm about to buy your car, I'm not going to pay attention. And I think we forget that a lot in marketing. We focus on demographics, right, and intent. And we're like, oh, we're going to reach the right person, and this site has the right demographics, and therefore we're going to get in front of the right person.
Yeah.
When actually it's all about timing. And if you think about Twitter, right, and tweeting a message to somebody, it's all about timing. Because you can see when someone's on Twitter. Usually, I mean, unless they time their tweets.
Yeah.
So you know that they're actually sitting in front of their computer. How powerful is that?
Yeah.
To be able to reach somebody at the moment when they're sitting in front of their computer, as opposed to any other moment.
Yeah, I think that's a strength and a weakness, right? So if you're there standing on the banks of the river when it floats by, you see it, that's great, and it may be something really valuable that could change your life, or an important piece of information like, hey, there's a tsunami coming or something like that. But if you don't see it, it's kind of bad news. But I guess that's the risk you take with the now web. Stuff that's happening as we speak.
Yeah, I mean, things happen in real time. But I guarantee you that no matter how many followers someone has, the first thing they read is the @messages that go directly to them.
For sure. So why is this book important to be written today and not a couple years ago or some other time? Timing is everything, but why now?
Timing is everything. And I thought about this for a really long time, and actually I think that the reason why the book is so important today is because I feel like we are in a modern believability crisis, that people just don't believe any organizations, they don't believe each other, they don't believe institutions of all kinds. And there's lots of surveys that show this over and over again, whether it's 47% of people only 47% believe that business has something positive to add to society. 17% of people think that Congress is doing a good job, right? I mean, these are pitiful numbers, pitiful. And I think the solution is that we need to bring more of the humanity back to these institutions, back to the people, because that's what we associate with. People associate with people, not with brands by themselves.
So how do we do that?
Well, I think you read the book. But I think, also what you do is you
Give us the
bring
crib notes.
humanity back.
Give us the crib notes right now.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
The crib notes are you got to be a real person, right? You got to tell the truth. You got to make it simple. You got to try and be relevant by offering somebody something valuable. And you got to do it in the right moment when they're going to care about it. I mean, these are not, I'm not trying to teach you how to build a Soviet missile, right? I mean, these are all pretty logical, golden rule-esque types of things.
Yeah.
But we're dramatically bad at it.
So talk to us about who's doing it well.
Well, I think that individually, there's a lot of people who are doing it well, and I focus on people a lot. So one of the examples that I talk about quite a bit, because I think it's an amazing example, is Costco, the warehouse retailer. And the prevailing philosophy that they've got, thanks to the CEO, the now retired CEO, just retired, Jim Senegal, who basically has had this philosophy of the business that has permeated through everything. And it is that we put our employees first, that we treat each other relatively, on an equivalent level, the tall poppy thing again, right? I mean, he wears a name tag that says Jim when he walks around, even though he's CEO.
Sure.
Right. But also from a business policy point of view, they have a set margin, and they say publicly, we will not make more than 15%. That's our margin. And if we can buy the products that we're buying from the sellers for less, we pass that savings on to you.
Right.
And when they have their monthly meetings, they have to justify if they made too much money. Right? The CEO, there was an article in, I think, the Seattle Times or something like that, talking about the CEO taking a pay cut. I mean, this is not your ordinary company.
Yeah.
And yet, year after year, they deliver profitable results, even though Wall Street hates them because they could be making more. Right? But they're even. Right?
So that's
they make
the trust
money.
factor that
They
you're
make money
talking about.
over and over. Yeah, it's trust, it's unselfishness, it's relevance, it's everything. I mean, they put all the pieces together, and they run an organization that people love to work for. Their employees actually have health benefits. They get paid more than other organizations pay. So nobody leaves a job at Costco, right? They are employee retention through the roof, employee satisfaction through the roof. Customers love it. They have every piece all together.
I can buy a gigantic barrel of pretzels this tall.
That's right. And who doesn't need that?
It's delicious.
Yeah. Or gummy bears.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything you need. Anything you need. But
That's
I think they're a great business example. I mean, that is the future of business.
So if I've got a small business, I run a little shop, so say I have a restaurant, how do I do that same thing? How do I replicate that model?
Well, I think the first thing that you do is you realize what an important part of your business you are. And I think a lot of small business owners, what they do a really good job of is removing themselves from that equation, because they think that what people are really buying is the product or the experience, and they try and copy something that they think is working for a bigger company.
Well, yeah, that's kind of sort of counterintuitive to what I have thought, and it's about developing systems. A good example of that, in Southern California, we have In-N-Out Burger, which is very systematic. You know, they do the same thing the same way, and it's brilliant. It's a machine. But you're saying put your personality back into it, make it more personal?
Yeah, that's right. And
so
I
how
think,
do you do that?
Well, I think that the first thing that you do, and what works in a quick service restaurant, for example, is not the model that's going to work for everybody, right? I mean, if what you're selling is, I'm going to get you the thing that you need the fastest, then that model works. I don't necessarily want, I mean, it's hitting the right situation. I don't necessarily want to have chit-chat with that person. I'm just going through the drive-thru, I'm late for my meeting, I'm grabbing a burger, that's all I want. But in most small business situations, I think the thing that distinguishes the smaller business from the larger business is your ability to have that personal connection.
And that's you're talking about the chemistry factor, the make or break. What can make or break your business?
Yeah, I mean, on some level, people have got to want to do business with you, because you are not, even if you happen to be today in a situation where you're the only person who sells what you sell, that's not going to last. It just isn't. And so people have to want to do business with you instead of your competitor. Otherwise, you're going to lose any advantage you have. It's not going to sustain itself.
If timing is everything, talk to us about how to decide the right time.
Yeah, so that is one of the toughest questions.
It seems arbitrary. Like, I think this is the best time. I don't know for sure. Isn't it often a guess, stab in the dark?
Yeah, it can be. I mean, I think that timing is a very tough thing to get right. But on the flip side, I do think that there are ways that you can understand what the wrong timing would be a lot easier.
Like what?
So the advertising example I used before. What does somebody care about most right now? And are you interrupting that, or are you adding to that? Right. That's the first question. That's a very basic question. But if more companies asked that question, they wouldn't do half of the marketing that they're doing.
So what do you say to TV spots? Because they happen, every 15 seconds while I'm watching my favorite show, and I don't like to watch them, so I fast forward and I get back to Mad Men or whatever show that I'm watching, on DVR.
Well, I think TV spots also are evolving, because if you look at now some of the newer models of TV spots, what they're doing is they're taking, for example, some of the talent from the show, bringing it into a TV spot, and it becomes additive to the experience of watching something as opposed to interruptive.
Yeah.
Right. So even TV spots are changing and they're shifting. That you have that, but also you have the situation that I think is going to become more common of TV spots being, this might be the wrong way to describe it, but TV spots becoming what the jester and narrator used to be in a Shakespearean play, which is a break from the drama, right? An entertainment break, which is something that's been around in dramatic flows for a long time. This thing that when we're watching something really serious, maybe we can't watch that straight for 60 minutes.
Too
maybe
intense.
we need a.
Well, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Maybe we need a break. Maybe we need something. I think that the way that advertising comes into the Super Bowl, for example, has totally become that. It's an entertainment break from sports. Right. And so I think that the more we can use that sort of philosophy of TV spots, the less we're just interrupting people because we're interrupting them.
Yeah, and now that you mention it, I mean, it does make me think that they're using a bit of mystique and pique our curiosity to say, here's what's happened in 15 seconds. If you want to watch the rest of, where I drive my BMW or what happens, go here to check it out.
Yeah.
So they're inviting us in, and I'm seeing a lot less go to the www, and it's more like go to our Facebook or talk to us on Twitter so we can keep the conversation going after this 15 seconds is over, because we'd like to have that relationship.
Yeah, I think that's what good advertising will do. I mean, part of it is a call to action. Part of it is the idea that sometimes all you need is for someone to know that your product or service exists, because in that moment when they are in the grocery store.
It's an awareness factor.
Yeah. They're like, oh, I've seen something about that. Yeah. Oh, I remember that. Right? So, I mean, I think the challenge, I think, comes from a lot of companies that look at what works for breakfast cereals and think, oh my God, I have to do the same thing. And you can't just take that tactic and slap it over here and say, okay, well, I'm going to sell enterprise software the same way that Cheerios sells itself.
So it's
doesn't work.
customizing the message, customizing the time.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, I think a lot of people don't see it this way, but I think B2B is actually much easier to engage people in when it comes to B2B marketing.
Why do you say that?
Because somebody who's shopping for a product or service in a B2B environment cares about what you have. And they care because it's part of their job to care, but also because they're a professional usually in that sort of industry. If you're selling an IT solution, you're selling to IT managers. They already know a lot about that product.
Although I can argue that a little bit, because I think that the B2B person is usually not the C-suite. It's not the CEO. It's the decision maker, the person put in charge to make one decision for a large group of people. So I think the decision can be weightier. Like, you've got to be better than, to sell me a pack of chewing gum is an impulse buy. I don't think twice about it. I just go buy my favorite flavor. Whereas if I'm going to buy, something for my company, it's not just what I want, but I have to think about what everyone wants, the implications of that. What if I screw up? What if it's the wrong price? What if it's the wrong product? You know what I mean?
Oh, no doubt making the sale requires a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
But when it comes to marketing and engaging people, I think it's a lot easier to get someone engaged if you have the right sort of content and message in that category than it is to get somebody engaged about a Snickers bar or something like that. Because, it's an impulse buy and I might just pick it up and buy it, which is fine. But when it comes to real ongoing engagement, delivering that content, the white paper strategy that we've seen for years and years and years, I far prefer to work on that stuff. I mean, that's where you can really get some interesting work.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up, because a lot of people still, I think, are not just marketing, but social media marketing in general. They think it's not for B2B, when in fact it's probably, like you say, it's easier.
Well, not only, I mean, maybe easy is the wrong word because I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but it's a lot more exciting to do that, I think, in that environment, because there's so much more you can do. And when you go and do some consumer stuff, it has to be a lot more stunty in a lot of cases. You got to put the Old Spice guy on a horse, and then you got to do something else.
Yeah.
And then you got to get Fabio.
Yeah.
And then it's like this ongoing site. I mean, and that's cool and that's fun too, but it's very different. Right?
Yeah. Let's explore that a little bit more then. So how do I break through the noise? Let's look at the car industry. There's so many automobiles out, and they're all great, and they all basically have the same features and benefits. How do I, if I'm car company A versus car company B, how do I get noticed? How do I break through? I mean, money isn't as a quick answer. Yeah, whoever has the most money can buy the attention, sure, but how do I become the most interesting or fascinating, or how do I get noticed?
Well,
how do I become likable?
Yeah. Well, I think Ogilvy's done a lot of work with Ford. That's a big client for us. And I think what a lot of that work has shown is ultimately what's the goal of any automotive advertising, right?
Move metal.
Yes, but more nuanced than that, right, is that they want to get you in the car for a test drive. Because all the data shows if you get into the car for a test drive, you're much more likely to buy. You just need to get somebody behind that wheel. That's the ultimate message that you're trying to do. So you're trying to do everything you can to make it more likely that somebody will take that test drive, because if they do, you are much more likely to convert.
Conversion rates go up.
Way higher.
Yeah.
Way higher. So that's the way that industry works. Everybody knows that. So now, in order to get people to associate with that car, to get them into that car, the entire strategy for Ford over the last couple of years has very much been about humanizing a lot of these aspects that we just think get made.
Right.
So if you look at the guy from Dirty Jobs,
right,
being a spokesperson for that, Mike Rowe.
Yeah, big fan, Mike.
Yeah, he is saying, and he had an amazing piece that he wrote, I think in Fast Company. He got interviewed. He talked about our disconnection as people from how things get made today versus what it was 20 years ago, and how we need to reconnect with that essence of how the things that we use are actually being made and manufactured, and whether they're manufactured here versus somewhere else. And I think what Ford's done a really good job of is saying, here are the real people who are working on these cars. Here's the guy who's working on the sound that the car door makes when it shuts. Here's the guy or girl who's doing this other piece of the car. And by people seeing all of that, they start to get a real sense of, this is kind of an interesting car. They reassess.
It humanizes
what they thought
the
of
brand.
Ford. Humanizes the brand, gets people to reassess whether they're considering buying a Ford. And if you look at survey results several years ago versus survey results now, one of the big questions they ask for people who are in the market for a new car is, are you considering a Ford among all the cars you're considering?
Right.
And that number's gone way up over the last several years, from what it was a couple years ago to what it is today.
So Ford attributes most of that success to humanizing the brand.
I don't know if they necessarily quantified it in that way. I don't want to kind of put words in for attributing that. But that, I think, has been a big factor.
It's part of the core strategy.
Yeah, it's been part of the core strategy. And it's gone through everything from the advertising through to how they've used social media, to the content that they've put out, to how the organization actually works. I mean, that's shifted also.
Rohit, what keeps you up at night? What are you still thinking about? What's important to you? What have you not solved yet?
I think I would like to be able to spend more of my time helping people who have these amazing ideas, who are doing these startups or nonprofits that can really have great impact, optimize how they're talking about it. And I never have enough time in my day to do as much of that as I would like.
Well, why is that so important to you?
Well, because I think that that's what they need. I mean, the person who comes up with the amazing idea a lot of times isn't the marketer. And I'm okay with that. I mean, I don't have to think the marketers are going to solve every problem in the world.
But that's sort of what marketing is all about. It's finding pain points and providing solutions, right?
Well, marketing's about communicating that, right? It's not necessarily about finding the solution. That's what invention's about.
Sure.
That's what inspiration and and all of those things are about. And maybe it relates to marketing, but marketing is just the act of communicating that outward. And I think that if I look at my core skill and value that I can add to the world, is to help people do that. And so because I'd never have enough time to do that for as many people and companies as I would like, that's the reason I write these books. Because now I can reach people that are beyond just the people I get to interact with. And that's not just for somebody who's launching that world-changing idea. It's also for somebody who's trying to launch their own career, right, for themselves, and trying to make themselves a better person, or to get out of college and now start their job.
Yeah.
I mean, those people need that help, right?
So distill a couple of final tips here. What would you talk to people who aspire to be entrepreneurs, who are perfectly happy in their jobs, but want to make a difference? What tips would you give them?
The first thing I'd say is figure out where you're going to start, and don't let the starting be a barrier for you. A lot of times we look at all of the work that's involved in something big, and we convince ourselves that we're going to wait to do it because it's so much work, right? And we do this with everything, whether it is launching a startup or deciding to work out today or not deciding to work out today. And if you could just say, you know what, I'm just going to start. I'm just going to do one little thing.
Yeah, we want to get it perfect out of the gate.
Yeah, we all do.
Like analysis paralysis.
Yeah, we all do. And so I would say just start. You don't need to quit your job. You don't need to, have a perfect website.
What would you say to the people who, they've got past that hurdle but are afraid of the implications, afraid of the jealousy or the internal conflict or what the boss might think, I'm a loose cannon now, or running amok. What do you say to those people?
This might not be the advice you expect, but I would say if you're in a work environment where that is likely to happen, you can't really publicly say, I'm doing this thing. You got to do it on the down low to start with. And I'm not telling people you should lie to people about it, but you don't need to broadcast the fact that you're launching this thing on the side, because you don't know how much you're going to put into it. Yeah. Right? You don't know how much time you're going to put into it. You don't know how much effort it is.
So if that's the case, if you're blogging after hours, burning the midnight oil, whatever. How much of your company name can you or should you integrate into that process, or should it be completely separate? Like, you're not telling anyone at work, therefore, the thoughts and feelings and the words that I write are mine only, and I'm not even going to mention Ogilvy or the clients or whatever. What's your advice?
First of all, I think it depends on where you work. I mean, if you work at Google and you have a day off every week to come up with that kind of stuff, of course you're going to say, I work at
you're
Google.
allowed, and that's the ideal.
That's the ideal.
Please
but,
spend 20%.
Most people are in a situation where, you've got to keep it separate. Because, first of all, you're probably not authorized to use your company's name or to be a representative of your company. And that's where people start to get into real trouble, when they speak on behalf of a company when they're not allowed to.
Right. So should we change the names to protect the innocent, that kind of thing?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't blog about your colleagues ever. I mean, that's just a career-limiting move.
I'm just saying, like, about case studies. Like, here's my thoughts on this campaign that we did. This is where I think we did a really great job, and here are my thoughts on this.
This is an important thing, right?
Yeah.
So I started blogging in 2004, and I had 2 hard and fast rules, and I knew them from the beginning. One was I never blog about client stuff, unless they've cleared it, and they've said, yeah, we want you to blog about this. And the second is that I never blog about financial stuff. And those are hard and fast rules.
Yeah. Now, I love that you said that, because I think a lot of people may just brush over that and not realize how important and what the legal
That's why I still have a job.
Yeah. I think it's important.
I mean, that's a fact of life. I mean, I'm sorry about free speech and all that stuff, but the fact is you can't blog about client stuff. I mean, they're hiring you. It's a one-to-one contract. They don't want you talking about their stuff.
So you would suggest writing about, talking about, however you're going to share it, in principle, concepts, thoughts, feelings.
You talk about concepts. You can talk about stuff other people have done. Right. Or you can talk about something that you've worked on, like, way after it's finished, and what you learned from it. Or you can do the hiding of the names and the organizations and do it that way. Right. There's lots of different ways to do it, but you have to know where your line is in your company and what you're not allowed to do, because otherwise you will get fired for doing it. And there's plenty of examples of that. And I'm not the sort of person that says, oh, well, people should be able to post everything that they want on social media, and how dare a company fire them for that?
Yeah.
If your company has a policy that says you can't do this and you did it, sorry, man.
Yeah, you broke the rules.
Yeah, you broke the rules. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
Right?
What are the tips? Do's and don'ts?
I think the other thing about relationships is the people you meet are much more likely to have a factor in your future success than what you do. And if you remember that, it changes how you go to things like events. It changes how you interact with the people who might today be trying to sell you something, but tomorrow are the people you have to sell to.
Right.
Because it is every industry is small. We all talk about, like, oh, it's a small industry, but every industry is small. So I think that remember that the relationships that you have are the most powerful thing that you've got. And that transforms the way that you think about things like networking, which people generally hate to do.
Right.
And turns it into something where it's more focused on just building those relationships and not a volume game. Oh, I got 25 business cards from a half-hour networking thing. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Nobody will remember you, and or if they do, they'll remember you as that really annoying guy who wanted the business cards.
Yeah. I actually am collecting business cards because I'm trying to wallpaper a room.
Yeah, see, there you go.
Just strictly business cards. So I am collecting.
Is that your pickup line? Your business card pickup line?
No, I'm completely with you. It is. I'm not collecting, I'm connecting.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about.
The other one I've used is it's not who you know, it's who knows you, which I think is an important difference, because if it's, if you're just collecting things, nobody has ever heard of you. But if people know you, again, it goes back to that brand. If somebody says, oh, I need somebody who's a really great interviewer who can come and do a show. Mm-hmm. Oh, you should come and talk to Brian. I know him.
I know this guy.
I know this guy. He does that. He's perfect for you.
Yeah. And that applies to plumbers, to architects.
Everything.
To mechanics. It's good advice.
Universal, yeah.
Well, we've been spending a few minutes with Rohit Bhargava. Rohit, thank you so much for being with us, sharing your words of wisdom. Best of luck with your book, Likeconomics.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.